Hi, I'm Bud Gibson. I'm the director of the Center for Digital Engagement, and I'm here with the first episode of this year's digital marketing workshop entitled Detroit Creative. Joining me are the moderator for today's panel, Jamie Ward, and Destiny Frank, who is going to be our Facebook question wrangler. And so, Jamie, what have we got today?
We have some really great panelists today who will be giving us insight on brand strategy, audience and product development, and really being part of Detroit's creative community. It's the Detroit Creative Panel, and we're so excited to get started.
Okay, I'll let you and your panelists take it away then.
Great. So what I wanted to do first is I wanted to start with some brief introductions. But before we do that, I wanted to remind all of our viewers, please make sure to post questions in the comments section. We're going to have a couple of breaks throughout our program. We can focus on audience questions. We want to make sure that the audience questions get heard. So again, we'll have times in here to get audience. So start posting as soon as about it. We do that, again, let's jump to our session. Let's start with some introductions of our really great panelists. So I'm going to ask each of you to tell me a little about your backgrounds, where you went to school, what you studied, and then a brief insight into your career journeys. Melissa, let's go ahead and start with you.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I work at the Lit Bar. I'm the head of operations over there. I do go by MJ because we have Melissa Butler, who's Melissa, so just so everybody knows that. But I originally am from Rhode Island. I grew up out east. As far as my schooling goes, I had a free ride to Hofstra for theater. I lasted a year, and then I bounced around all the country for a little while. With a bachelor's of business from the University of Place Malt. So I am the least fancy person alive. And my career basically started out with me having a side hustle as a copywriter. And into product development, I really lucked out, I will say, on that front. I started working at home, and I had some really good mentors, and that's how I got to be where I am today.
Welcome. Drew, how about you?
Hey, Jamie, good to see you. Thanks for having us all on today. It's great to be here. I'm the owner of Skidmore Studio and another company called Mission Fields. I'm a graduate of Albany College over on the lower central part of the state. Spent my whole life in Southeast Michigan outside of that time at college. And I have economics and management. Started my career in public accounting as a CPA and have made it so straight. Owner of a creative studio and a food business. A lot of EY, big four, big corporate 500 type experience. And then I just realized it wasn't for me. So I moved into a more entrepreneurial path, and Skidmore in Michigan would be the third and fourth that I have ownership of. So yeah, got here. A lot of steps along. Very short.
Great. Welcome. We're glad to have you today.
Thanks.
And April, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me here today, Jamie. So I'm April Anderson, and I am the co-owner and chef at Good Cakes and Bakes, and we are an organic, all-natural bakery located in this. I have an undergrad from Spelman College and then MBA from University of Michigan. I worked in finance for 11 years, and then I worked in nonprofit. And in 2010, I went back to school to get a degree in pastry arts. And while at community college, I decided that I wanted to open up a bakery. So I went to my just recent meeting, like, hey, I want to open up a bakery, and left my job exactly 61 days from the date and we've been open for 8 years now. First entrepreneurial experience. Never thought I would be doing that, but I love it, and there's many more to come, I hope.
Great, welcome. I love that we have a lot of paths that we're not to success. There's a lot of curves and dips along the way. So what factors led to you choosing Detroit as your place to start or your home base for your business? Let's start with one.
Yeah, it's where I'm from, plain and simple. So I mean, you're gonna start where you're at. I love the city. I love families here and people. There's just an energy here. I think everybody's going to talk about that. Talk about with grit and determination. And I've just always been attracted to this place and never had. There's always been opportunity to travel a whole lot around the country, but I always come back home. It's home for. I think there's some opportunity here that may not be elsewhere as far as first entry to starting a or being entrepreneurial. There's really strong level, but we're not in a major, top 5 market where it's too expensive for small businesses to attract top talent. So the bottom line is I love the city in here. And so there's a lot of benefit to that. But yeah, it's a great place to be an entrepreneur.
Great. April.
So I was born and raised in Detroit. So of course, when I decided I wanted to open up a business, it was I to be in Detroit because not only is it my hometown, so my family and my friends are at. So I definitely wanted in the city that people could support, but also could be bringing in delicious baked goods that they didn't have to go out into the suburbs to get. And being on Livernois, it's close to where I grew up at, so it's like close to my heart, and the community over there definitely welcomed and accepted us over there. I wouldn't want to have my business anywhere else.
Great. How about the Lip Bar? How did the Lip Bar come to be Detroit?
Well, Melissa is from, and so that is here. And even though she's moved away, now she is in LA, we're still in the office here just because this is where the hometown is, and this is store is, this is where our headquarters are. So that it's really important to us. And we've talked about it. We've talked about in this virtual, do we still need an office or anything like that? And we do. We absolutely do need to get together. We do need to have our focus groups in person. Do need to have our presence in the community, and we feel very strongly about that for sure.
Great. I hear a lot of hometown to the community and to the surrounding areas, and I think that's important when we're starting to talk about building our markets and really making those connections. Drew, I'm going to turn it back over to you with one other question here. Skidmore Studios was started over 60 years ago, so it's full in the Detroit community. How has the studio changed over the years? What's it like now compared to what it was?
It's changed a lot. We've gone through what I'd say is 4 different evolutions, iteration of what Skidmore. We started out as an illustration shop. Leo Skidmore, illustrator in Detroit, automotive illustration. It used to, for the vehicles, used to cost more than the vehicles themselves, and it was how they envisioned, new prototype vehicles. It was all drawn by hand. It's really amazing artwork. If anybody hasn't gone, there's a exhibit at the DIA right now that's been running about the history of automotive design, and there's very, very beautiful work. Some of it has to be from Skidmore because we were doing a ton of that work for the big ad agencies in town as a subcontract. So I'm sure that some are from Skidmore artists. But yeah, we started out as an illustration shop, then evolved into a design-centric firm, then evolved into a more strategic firm, and then we've narrowed even since I took over to be really focused on emerging CPG brands and the strategy and design work that helps food and beverage brands grow. Path to a focus at zero and not very Detroit, so you would think, because we're not automotive, services, or education, the 3 big industries that are here. We're food and bev focused. So it comes with its challenges, but it's what we love to do and what we have gained expertise in. So that's what we're doing now.
And can we chat a bit about Michigan Fields? What about Michigan Fields? How did that come to be?
Yes, that was our pandemic response as a creative studio. Really, and we'll say, we didn't want to panic. I didn't want to panic. I've been feeling a lot of panic inside, but didn't want to let that guide our decisions. So it's, what can we do? You know, we work in the food and bev space. We've got a network of people we know. And so what can we do? And that was our idea, was let's create a brand and a site and make all the connections to get local grown and produced product to people's where they need it. That was the impetus behind the Fields, and we got up and running in 4 weeks. So Michigan Field, that's where we sell all locally grown and produced product and deliver to homeowners.
Great.
Homeowners,
Excellent.
residents, I should say. People at home, at their homes. You don't have to own your home to be a customer of Michigan Fields.
I love it. Melissa, the founder of the Lip Bar, as you mentioned, Melissa Butler, started the company from Herkin. Talk to us a little about how you were able to grow your community of customers and get your message out.
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty compelling story. I don't know how many people on this chat are familiar with the background, but Melissa and Roscoe were on Shark Tank, and I'm sure you all know that you can see Shark Tank and it's on an endless loop on CNBC or whatever. But that was the really big starting point, and every time that Shark Tank again, it creates new customers for us. And largely that's because they didn't get a deal. They got booted off the show. They were actually pretty kind of insulted. Everybody knows this. And so it's a true underdog story. So people who have followed us through our journey, for example, we got into 4 doors at Target, 40 doors at Target, which was a huge win for us. Every time we get these incremental wins, whether it's us being on the reel for the first, or showing up on Good Morning America for the first time, or getting into Walmart where we are now, the community rallies around us because it's an underdog story. And Melissa, as a human being, is such a compelling presence. She is, and most people don't know that she's literally the tiny person. She is so small, but her presence is so large and so compelling, and she's so tenacious, that I think that has truly resonated with all of the women in our products in the community. Sure.
I'm familiar with that Shark Tank episode, and I would agree. It was a harsh.
It was rough.
Yeah, it was definitely rough. And
Sure.
so I love the underdog story that comes from that, and especially in light of how particularly tough that one was.
Mm-hmm.
And April, you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched that episode. Like, goodness, this is where she branched out on her own. But it was like, oh my God, it was being so demeaning, and the names that he's called was so unnecessary. So I know this has to be a great punch in the face to Mr. Wonderful to be like, nah, look at us now.
Well, look at us now. Not only that, but also we're not giving you any of our money.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's the big part about it. You don't want a Shark Tank deal. Everybody out there, you do not want a deal from Shark Tank. Go on the show and don't take the deal. That's how you win.
That's how you win.
I love it. April, you mentioned on your website that you knew pretty early on that you wanted to bake. Right?
Yeah.
You went to college with a focus other than baking, as you mentioned to us. So how did you market your business in a way that separated you from competitors to help target your customers?
So I've been baking since I was 9, but to give away my age, there were no channel, there was no celebrity chefs, and so I had a son in high school. So to tell my bake cakes for a living, she was not having it. She was like, you can't take care of your child baking cakes. You know, there was no like true future in that to her. So I went to school for math, and so I went to school for accounting. But then as my son got older, I realized that I still would, like, for his birthdays, I would still be baking cake. And I saw this class in a magazine about cake decorating, and I was like, decorate cakes, you can learn at a craft store. And I was like, what is a craft store? Which turns out to be Michael's. So I went to Michael's and I was taking the decorating classes. And Sunday I had to bake the cake to take the class on Monday. And after maybe, I think, the classes, I realized that I really didn't enjoy learning to decorate. What I enjoyed was baking the cake for the class on Monday. So I decided to be able to learn how to develop my own recipes and bake cakes. And it was once I was in, even when I was doing that, it was not with open up a bakery, because I still had that mindset that I needed corporate America in order to have that security that I was raised by my parents. Believe you go to school, you get a job where you get a pension, you get benefits, you get a paycheck, and you retire. Do this for 30 years, you retire. So even when I was going back to school, it wasn't with intent for business. It actually was the intent to have a food blog. So that's where the name Good Cakes come from. Is from I wanted to do a food blog, but it was while in classes that I realized that maybe I do want to open up a bakery. Maybe I can do this. And so I went to Michelle, like I said, and I was like, I want to open a bakery. And it was so interesting because at the same time that I was leaving my job to open up this bakery, the city filed bankruptcy, the largest bankruptcy in municipal history. My parents thought I was losing my mind. The city is going bankrupt, and you want to leave your job and open up a bakery in the city that's going broke. And so me with this business history, as long as I connect with they taste our baked goods, I know I can win them over. So I would be on the weekends when I didn't work, I would be baking, giving away baked goods to people. And Michelle was like seeing that, and all she was seeing was dollar signs. You keep giving away stuff, but it paid off, because once we opened, we had all these customers who were coming to us because they had sampled our free cookie or our free gooey butter cake, but they had that sample, and those were our original customers. And to date, most of our customers come from word of mouth or from our social media or any organic press that we've gotten. That's how we've developed our customers. We spend very little money on marketing in these whole 8 years. It's all been organic growth. And that's what makes it so wonderful. It's because we know that the customers are coming to us and telling people it's about us because our product is good. But not only our product is good, but the experience that they get when they come into the bakery is a wonderful experience. Those are the two things that we focus on, making sure that we're providing a great product, but also making sure when the customer comes into the bakery that they're getting this experience that they can't get from going to a big box store or maybe even another local bakery, making sure that we're differentiating ourselves from everybody else, those two ways.
Excellent. Excellent. Each of your companies prides itself on being purpose-driven and truly focused on making a difference in the lives of both employees and your customers. Can you talk about how that drives your branding and your storytelling efforts? MJ, I'll go ahead and jump to you.
Okay, great. So yeah, as most people know, perhaps, we are vegan and cruelty-free, but at extremely affordable prices. And I think that's a huge difference. I mean, in a certain price point, you're faced with bad ingredients that are not healthy for your skin, that are not good for the environment, that aren't good for animals. And so we really did focus on coming at it from a price point perspective. But also, in reality, we know that most of our women are challenged for time. They are either working mothers or they're busy at business and things like that. So by creating our fast-paced system that is completely without thought, like all of the shades are put together for your particular skin tone, and you can mix and match the products, but we set it up for you to make it easy and fast. And I think that is how we are really making a difference in the lives of our consumers. And not only that, with our employees too, as you mentioned, we are 100% female-owned, 100% female business. So it is super important to us that we give our employees benefits and understanding that I feel like is a challenge in a lot of other businesses. For example, we have 4 women who are pregnant right now, and they are all going to be gone. And so we're all like, okay, we got to, pull up our bootstraps and, actually step in when they're on mat leave and be able to take care of them when it comes to mental health issues or any time that people need. We like to treat everybody with respect and not pretend like we aren't all human beings. I think oftentimes in larger corporations, there's a lot of like, let's all play robot, when in reality we're not robots, we're human beings. And that is a big thing that the pandemic has also taught us as well is this, flexibility. I think everybody's learned that now. And it's been overall, I mean, it's been horrible to have a pandemic, but business-wise, I think we've learned a lot on that front of what flexibility truly can look like and how we can benefit our employees while still being here to serve our consumers.
Drew, how about you? Purpose-driven strategies.
Yeah, I really like how MJ described Lit Bars and the difference between the strategy internally and benefits for employees versus externally with consumers, and they should definitely come together and relate. But I will say Skidmore's purpose for existing is to help good organizations and good people be their best, very intentional. They get to define what their best is, and that's true for our clients and it's true for our employees. And there's two different versions of that we then move to when you get one level deeper in how we talk about that purpose. One is very internal, which is Skidmore has existed for 60 plus years to provide the environment for the top creative talent in Detroit to do their best work and live their best lives. But that's very internal. And I think that's where you get, sometimes companies make a mistake of thinking that their internal why is a compelling reason for customers to buy their product or service. And I caution against that. So our external why is to help good organizations and good people grow. And we fulfill that purpose by helping emerging food and fun brands grow through brand strategy and design. And we do that by having that internal purpose, which is a little different from the external. There's a very famous TED Talk from a guy named Simon Sinek that everyone should check out. And the premise of that is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And he says that about 100 times, and he's made millions of dollars off of that platform. And there's truth to it for sure. I like to distinguish between that truth of the internal why and the external why for your customers, and make sure that your messaging is focused on the why for your customer, not for your employee. Both are critically important and they should be related and work together, but there is a difference between the two. Like there's so much of the buy one, give one type arrangements for corporate for-profit entities to demonstrate some social benefit that's really in its end, and I don't say this with judgment, but it's self-serving. And that may work for you, it may not, but ultimately you have to give your customers, to April's point, you have to give them the experience and the quality of product that exceeds their expectation. That's what's going to make them come back. It's not because you care about the environment. Like that's relevant, but it's not why somebody's going to continue to buy your product or service.
Right. April, purpose-driven.
So it's a little opposite of what Drew is saying there, because our purpose has always been, we're a triple bottom line business. So our purpose has always been people, planet, profit. So we made sure that when we started hiring people, we were hiring people who we were returning citizens coming home from prison, kids, their first job, but offering them a livable wage so they can take care of their family. Making sure that the products that we were using, like our packaging was compostable, making sure that we were using stuff so that we would be leaving, we would be minimizing our carbon footprint. But then profit, of course, we're a business, right? And we're here to make money, but we wanted to make sure that that wasn't our leading factor. Our leading factor wasn't profit. It was about making sure that we were doing good in the community, doing good for people, and providing good baked goods. Because you think of baked goods and you'd be like, oh, it's just full of sugar and butter and fattening. But we were trying to make a good baked good that we were intentionally sourcing wholesome ingredients, right? We were using organic butter. We were using milk that organically grown, organically treated milk, right? But we were making sure that we were able to do that at a rate that allowed us to be profitable, and making sure we had one thing of telling our story. So making sure that we was telling our customers this, because when we first opened, organic wasn't a big thing, right? Organic was, we was not able to find large quantities of organic butter and flour and sugar and stuff. So we had to purchase them in the grocery store, just like everybody else. So our profit margin was very low, but we still wanted to be able to offer to the community, because not only was we trying to give good baked goods, but we also was trying to educate a community, right? We were, at the time, we were the first full organic bakery in the Detroit area. So our customer base looked just like me, and they didn't understand what organic was. Some wasn't. They came in, they really thought that it was something that was changing the taste. Like, this isn't going to taste good, because they didn't understand what it meant to be organic. So we were not only giving you a baked good, but we also had the duty to teach people, teach people what organic was and why this was good for you. And so that was a lesson, and that was a lesson in its own that we had to learn. We had to learn how to message that message to people that we knew why we started the bakery. We knew why we were having organic baked goods was because I've seen the impact that it had on my nieces at the time. And we wanted to be able to provide them with baked goods that didn't have chemicals, didn't have the hormones inside the milk and the butter and eggs, right? And so we wanted to also give that to our customers. So we had to learn how to not only educate our customers, but also educate ourselves and make sure that our staff knew how to educate and tell customers too. So it was a full circle learning for us, our employees, as well as our customers.
Great. Thank you all. We're going to pause for a moment. I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Destiny, to get some audience questions.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Keep them coming, because we'll have another section. But our first question is from Nautica, and it is Michigan Fields similar to HelloFresh?
It's similar in that it's delivering food to your door at home and you order online. Difference being HelloFresh is, if my understanding is correct, generally pre-portioned ingredients for you to make your own meal at home. Michigan Fields is more locally grown products, not specific to a meal, but it's more like grocery shopping, a specialty store with all local grown and produced product, rather than it being kitted together for a meal.
Great. We also have a question for April from Anna. It says, April, how was the opportunity to bake with Oprah? How did that happen?
So that happened because when we first opened, we didn't bake at the bakery. We actually baked out of a commercial kitchen. So we were one of the first businesses to be licensed in the city of Detroit in a shared kitchen through Detroit Kitchen Connect. And when Oprah at the time, Oprah was doing a tour for Live the Life You Want. Every city that she went in, she wanted to recognize someone in that city was doing something great. And that was Davita Davison, who was the manager over Detroit Kitchen Connect, because she was one of the beginning people who saw a need that food artisans in the city of Detroit needed a place where they can grow their business so they can put it in markets and supermarkets. Because Michigan has the cottage food law, and you can bake at home and sell, but you can only sell for up to a certain amount. But if you want to go into grocery stores, you had to be in a kitchen. At the time, there were no shared kitchens that were affordable in the area for food artisans. And so one of the goals of Food Lab was to open that kitchen. And somehow Oprah Winfrey heard about it, and she wanted to spotlight that when she came to Detroit. And so we got to bake. They came to the kitchen and they set up and watched us bake. They came to the bakery, and then when she came to Detroit, we were able to bake and take baked goods to her and see the show. So that was a wonderful opportunity for us. Two things is it gave us opportunity to be showcased on a large scale, but it also allowed us to realize that we had a marketing fail because we were so new. We didn't know how to take the opportunity of baking for Oprah and marketing it correctly. So it taught us a lesson. It was a lesson that we learned in that opportunity that we had too.
That's great. That actually leads into the next question that we have from Olivia. It says, hi, April, Drew, and Melissa. What was a challenge you faced in your career that became a learning experience? How has that impacted your success today?
So I'll go first. So outside of the marketing bloop that we did with Oprah Winfrey, another thing that we really learned was we had to learn how to, two things is, so when we opened, one thing that I was so focused on making sure that we gave a great product. I was focused on that, and I wasn't focused on some of the other things. Like, for example, I didn't really get real great at social media. I didn't I didn't realize the potential of social media and how it could help us at the beginning. And it took me actually learning from someone else who was starting a business right after me, Sister Pie, and how she took social media, how she used it to grow her business before she opened her business. And so that was something that we had to go back and learn. So I wish that before we opened, I wish we'd have spent a lot more time on branding ourselves, and focusing on getting our name and our business message out there, opposed to being so focused on just the baked good, because that's all I was focused on when we first opened, was developing recipes, learning new things to bake, and I wasn't focused on the other parts of the business that ended up having to go backwards. Like I went backwards and had to start over. So those are things I would definitely tell people when they're starting a new business, is to make sure that you put the time, money, and effort into developing your brand, as well as not only your product that you want to sell, but also how you're going to sell that. And that's by branding yourself correctly.
And I can jump in there too, considering we're just talking about Oprah. We just recently, this past year, we were invited to be part of Oprah's Favorite Things, right? And who does not want to be part of Oprah's Favorite Things? Well, guess who's not part of Oprah's Favorite Things? The Lip Bar, because part of their restrictions this year was that you had to have your products available on Amazon. And we've been consciously, unconsciously, not really wanting to participate in Amazon's world, which is, it's a choice. When you do make that choice, Amazon charges a lot of money to have your products visible on their site. And we do have some products, but they have changed their algorithms and their restrictions in such a way that we weren't able to get this particular product that Oprah wanted up on Amazon. So we actually missed out this year. So now we have to kind of take steps back, like April said, reassess our positioning when it comes to dealing with Amazon. And if we want to have that exposure, hopefully we get the invitation again next year and have the opportunity. But we missed out. We missed out this year, and you kind of learn how everything is interconnected as you go. And you kind of can't pick and choose. You have to play.
Yeah, following on what MJ and April just said, ensuring that your brand and marketing story and your energy and effort aligns with your actual business goals is really critical. And we're all under-resourced and understaffed and don't have enough time to do all the things we want to do. But that's something we at Skidmore definitely advocate for, is make sure whatever you're doing from a brand and marketing perspective aligns with your actual business goal. It sounds really elementary, but I believe a lot of small organizations fail to do that. And April, I love that building your foundations of your brand, your story, and all those things that will then help inform all your marketing down the road are really important. As far as mistakes and learnings go, I've got a long list of them. I feel like I'm not sure which one to share in the moment. But from the entrepreneurial side, it's persistence. I think that entrepreneurism has been glamorized in a way that people feel like anybody who has their own business or owns their own business, that it's you're making a ton of money and life is good and you just tell other people what to do. And I hope to reach that point someday. But it's a journey, and it's just, you got to love the journey of it as opposed to the destination if you're going to do it. I had the second business that I was involved in. I went in as a minority partner. I put everything I had into it and then some, and I lost everything within 6 months, and I was starting over, right? It was a literal down to below zero moment within 6 months. And it was a real crossroads from a career standpoint. And I went and took a job at a place, after a time that I didn't think was going to be a long-term fit. And it wasn't really an opportunity that I explored too deeply. It was more like, I need a job and an income. I'm at this place in my life, so I'm going to do it, and I'm going to learn something new. And I went into it really positive. But I don't know where this is going to go, and career-wise. And that place happened to be Skidmore. So 10 years later, I ended up buying the firm because of the circumstances that came about. But I never intended to be there long term. I never intended to own the studio. I didn't even know what the creative world was about when I joined Skidmore. It was just an opportunity in front of me that allowed me to keep going and keep learning. So I took it. So that's in great failure came the passion of my life right now, which is helping Skidmore, a 62-year-old entity that needed to be nurtured and evolve into its next phase. I get to be the person who does that and shepherd the company into its next 60 plus years of existence. And it wouldn't have happened if I would have given up or not just taken an opportunity that wasn't I say it definitely wasn't the highest paying job I could have went and found. It probably wasn't the most aligned with that narrow career path that you might look at, but it ended up being the best decision of my career so far.
That's great. I think it's important learning from your mistakes and bringing it into the future. We do have a question about advice, or do we need to go back, or do we have time for one more question?
We can do one more.
Okay. This question is from Michelle Anderson. She asked, biggest takeaway you would tell your younger self to do right now, not marketing advice. So if you could go back and give your younger self advice, what would it be?
So I'll answer this first, and that's from my wife, Michelle, who sent that question. So I would tell my younger self to follow my passion from the beginning. Don't take the safe route, which is going to work, because that's what my parents told me I should do. I would have loved to have been able to start this passion when it was a burning passion at the beginning. So right out of high school, I would have loved to have had the opportunity to go to culinary school and then be further along into my career now.
I can go. I'll say, along with what April was talking about earlier, I came from a similar parental advice situation where it was like, go to school, get a job, retire after X amount of time. That's the goal, right? You're going to college, you're going to get a job. And so in that vein, I listened to all that and went down a path that ended up very quickly showing itself to be not where I felt comfortable. And I wish at a younger age, I would have embraced the idea of it's okay to be different. I spent a lot of time when I was younger trying to fit in, and that didn't serve me well in progression. So the advice is, it's okay to pursue any path you want. You don't have to take anything standard, and you can make money doing anything so long as you do it well. So don't let money drive the decision making.
And I would say from my perspective, my background is so bananas that I can't really undo any of that or picture what I would have told myself not to do, but because it's made me who I am. But I would say business-wise that you have to, and I tell this to all of the women that I work with, you have to be your own advocate. Nobody's just going to give you a raise. Nobody's just going to give you more money because, I don't know, they think you look sad and you work hard. You have to absolutely ask for more money from the get-go. So because what you sign up for and what you agree to, you can't be mad about a year later. You can't be mad that you said fine to $13 and then a year later you realize you're being taken advantage of and you're like, no, I want $18. You're not getting $18 until you quit and you go someplace else. So you have to advocate for yourself from the get-go. And that was a hard lesson for me. I spent a lot of years mad at jobs and it takes you a while to learn that nobody's just going to see you for the beautiful flower that you are. You have to make them aware. That's what I say.
I said, MJ, I really love that advice, because sitting on the other side of the negotiation, and we're a pretty progressive organization and we talk very openly with our people, and there's a lot of energy and effort that goes into trying to help our people grow and get what they want. But even with all that said, in our organization, it's still not our priority first thought to advocate for every individual, because one, we don't necessarily know what they want or what they're looking for. We can't get into their heads and know do they feel like they're being fairly compensated or not. And the organization just has other competing priorities. So it is really important, even in an organization that cares about you, and wants to do well by you, for you to be your own advocate. I really appreciate that advice.
All right. Jamie, do you have the rest of the questions?
I do. I'm going to jump back in then. So let's talk about digital marketing strategies. We'll shift gears a little bit here. Can you talk about your thoughts on paid versus owned content when it comes to emerging consumer brands and where you've seen the most value?
I like what April said earlier, and this is coming from the person whose company helps emerging food and fun brands with at least brand foundation and creative work. I think too often people spend their limited dollars, or emerging companies spend their limited dollars on marketing channels and paid media that aren't going to provide a return. Now, we see it from our perspective. If you want to grow an audience within a major retailer, if you get the opportunity to be within that major retailer, the other brands that are established are spending 7 figures plus on their marketing, and you cannot compete, right? There's no way. So you have to figure out alternatives. And I think your own social media channels are a really important way to do that. But it still has to be strategic, and it has to come from a foundation, and you have to have specific goals around it. You can't just say, well, I'm going to do social media like on my own. There's got to be more to it. I think, April, you've probably had some pretty relevant experience around that.
Yeah. So for us, we started off, and when we started, Michelle still had her full-time job. And so I was doing a lot at the bakery. So I wore a lot of hats, and I was like, oh, I can do it all. I don't need to pay no one to do it. But as time went on, I learned that I needed to stay in my lane, and I needed to learn how to delegate stuff to people. So we have a person who's dedicated to social media, and that's what she does. Her job is to develop content for our pages, to engage with our customers. And we've noticed that since we've had a social media person, that her posting and good reels and good information and pictures on our social media has definitely engaged our customers, but also has brought new customers into us. And because you'll hear them say, oh, I saw that cake on your Facebook page, and I came in because I saw it on your Facebook page, right? And so they come in, and so I know that it's working. But we also have to make sure that we're not only are we posting different cakes, but we're also asking our customers, what do they want from us? And one thing that if you learned nothing else last month, when Facebook went down, that you had to have another way to get to your customers, right? Because if all your business is done through social media, you had 6 hours where you had no contact with your customers. And it was so interesting because a couple of weeks before that, I was on a panel, and one of the panelists said that websites are obsolete now. And I was like, well, I don't think so, because we do a lot of our e-commerce through website. But just think, if people were listening to that and they don't have a website, they had no way for their customers to get to them when social media was down. And if your business is driven off of contact with customers, customer purchasing something from you, you lost those customers. If social media didn't come back up, you had no way of getting to your customers. So I always tell people, you have to have other ways. Social media is great. It's a great opportunity. It's a low-hanging fruit way to get your customers, but you also have to have other ways to get your customers, which comes in e-marketing, email marketing, making sure that you have an email list. A website. I always advocate for websites. We're constantly upgrading our website to make it more user-friendly, because I know the importance from the beginning. I've known the importance of having a website. So I say that, social media is great, but you also have to have other ways to get to your customer besides social media. And if you didn't learn nothing else, those 6 hours, the social media was down. And it was so interesting because it was like 4 hours, and I didn't even realize it was down. The social media was down because I have a person who does that, but also I was still I was still answering emails from customers who I guess was going to our website and getting in touch with us, because we have other streams, and we make it clear we don't do business through Facebook or Instagram. when you go and you ask us for a quote on a cake, and it instantly tells you you must email us or go to our website. We don't handle our business through social media because we don't own those platforms. Those platforms don't belong to us, right? And I don't want my customer to only be there. So making sure that people know that you got to have multiple digital streams of marketing for your customers.
I say too, there's some another level below. The first bit of advice was like, don't put a big media budget together to have paid media digitally if you're a small emerging brand, because you can't afford to compete. So put your dollars elsewhere. Even on the own social side, April, it sounded like you did a great job early on of driving trial of product, which in the emerging food and bev space is really two major initiatives we're trying to achieve. One is build your audience so you can activate it. So you want to, that can be soliciting emails in exchange for something, or doing an event to get people to engage with the brand. But it's audience building activity. You're not trying to get them to do anything right away other than raise their hand and say, yes, communicate with me down the road. And then there's the activation piece, which again, in food and bev is about driving trial. We need you to try our product. So we're going to give you some sort of offer to do so after you've raised your hand to be part of the tribe or group. And often marketers are trying to do both of those things at once, and it's much less effective. So we recommend making sure you're addressing the foundational and then activating the audience with some sort of compelling offer. And then the repeat purchase is about, did they have a quality experience? And was the product meeting or exceeding their expectations? But don't try to do it all in one message or one channel or one activity.
Great. Okay. And Drew, to build on that a little bit, you mentioned it's that quality experience and the importance of the quality experience. I always like to talk about struggle and hardship. And Drew, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, April, you as well, about some struggles and hardships. And even MJ with the Shark Tank experience, we've alluded to some kind of struggles and hardships. Right? Building a successful brand certainly is not easy, especially one that's consumer centered, right? Can you talk about some of the obstacles your organizations have overcome, whether it's providing that quality experience or things that you tried that didn't work and made you shift gears? Talk to us about that shifting or that trial and error that didn't always go as you had originally planned it to.
We're in the middle of this with Michigan Fields, which is by all standards, an infant still in the business community. We've been around for 18 months. We started out of the beginning of the pandemic. So we launched in April 2020. And at that point in time, we launched into an incredibly forgiving environment. People needed food delivered to their homes. And there was a lot of supply chain issue, and there were a lot of entities that hadn't figured out how to do that yet. So we jump in and make that offer, and it's pretty easy for us to get going with the help of many very extraordinary partners who came to the table and helped us to get going. But since then, you think about the environment today versus April 2020, every major player in the world has figured out how to deliver to people's doors. So we spent the past year making some mistakes around who we are and what we do, and getting a little bit away from the original intent of Michigan Fields, which was to really build community around local food from supplier to consumer, right? And have that be the center of our mission and our purpose. And what we turned into was more of a in-between grocery store, right? We're not big enough to be a full grocery store. We're carrying about 400 SKUs, products, and a grocery store is going to have 20 to 50,000 products, right? And then on the other side, we're not really a specialty provider because we've got this wide array of product, and it's hard for us to be perceived as being very focused. So I would say we're in the middle of a struggle internally of what is it that we focus on doing and do best, and how are we serving an audience in need that's shifted from what the need was 18 months ago when we started. So stay tuned for the answer to that. But I guess to answer the question, it's the conditions of both the environmental conditions of your industry and the conditions that your consumer are facing are going to change and shift. And you can't dig in and be stubborn about who you are or what you're doing, or you're going to go out of business. There's another firm that's very similar to us who started right around the same time, and they shut their doors in August. So we see it. The conditions has just changed, and you have to change along with them.
And for sure, to your point, Drew, obviously we're going through the same exact thing, given the global supply chain crisis that we're all in, that we're not getting any forgiveness for as a small business, because we have to think about, not like, we have two sets of customers. We have our direct to consumer business, and then we also have our major customers like Target, Walmart, Meijer, and we have to provide to them equally. Oftentimes we just want to shelter our direct to consumer business and make sure that we have enough inventory on hand to satisfy those consumers. But in reality, Target, Meijer, Walmart, they're our customer too, and they expect to have full shelves. So it's been an extremely difficult balancing act over the last year and a half, really, and it's not going to stop. Unfortunately, I think everybody just wants it to be over. We want everything to be over and to go back to the way it was. But I think we're going to be in this situation for another year at least when it comes to our supply chain issues. So like Drew said, stay tuned. It's a work in progress, trying to figure this out all the time. So we've got, ocean freight that's moving on the water. We've got stuff that we have to have air freighted. It impacts our cost of goods. And this is all blind to the consumer. So this is not about like marketing and putting it out there, but this is what we're struggling with on the backside. So it's been rough, really hard.
All right, great. Destiny, I'm going to throw it back to you so that we can get a couple more audience questions.
Okay, great. We have a question from Ken. It says, it is hard to keep the top line and bottom line consistent with each other. How do you teach members of your team to keep the vision and the business goals aligned and make sure they deeply understand and accept that principle?
So I'll go first. Oh, go ahead, Drew.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So for us, how we do it at the bakery, we constantly say that we want to get to this open book finance management thing. But until then, we always are explaining to our staff the cost. When the price goes up on, like, for example, our packaging, as you were saying, MJ, supply chain is horrible right now. And so there's things that cost us more. We used to get these containers that cost us $42 for a box of 500. They're $80 now. So explaining to staff, that this new cost is, so we don't want to have to continue to be raising our price for customers. So we have to be innovative in the bakery so that we're able to not have to pass that cost on every time to a customer, because when you have that type of stuff, you start losing your customers' loyalty when every time they come in, the price is different than it was the last time, right? So explaining to our staff that pay attention when you're helping a customer. Is there a way to minimize giving them containers and putting more things in one container opposed to being so used to everything going in a separate container? So talking to them about when these costs go up so they understand why we're not just saying, don't use this, don't use that. What we're saying to them is that, please, think about using, a person get 2 slices of cake. We have a pink box that it can go in. You don't have to use 2 separate containers for that same cake, right? And explaining to them why, because of the cost. And how we've done with explain that is letting them know that when we don't want to have to change hours, minimize hours at the bakery, right? So I feel that when you explain to people how it affects their purse, they understand more. You can tell them how it affects the business, but when it starts affecting their purse, then they'll pay attention to it. So explain to them that in order to keep paying you the amount of hours that we're paying you and not have to reduce hours, because we can't reduce their pay, right? But we can reduce hours. We only have a few salary people at the bakery. So everyone else is hourly. So if costs start fluctuating like that, then we have to reduce hours. So when it starts affecting their purse, then they'll be like, oh, okay, they'll pay more attention to it. So that's how we have, at this point, been able to explain to people the supply chain pricing going up. And even before the pandemic, we had an issue with vanilla. We first started the bakery, we can get a gallon of our vanilla was $58. In 2 years, it went up to $300 and some dollars. And then in 2018, it was $521 for that same gallon of vanilla that we started off paying $58 for. So we did this whole infographic to show our customers the cost, how the cost changed from we opened to that time, to let them know why the price was going up. And our customers love that, because they wasn't used to businesses being that transparent, letting them know why. They just used to people saying, it's cost us more, now it got to cost you more. But we did a whole thing. We broke everything down and let them see it. And so we good at being very transparent with our customers, but as well as with our staff, to let them know our costs. But at the beginning, we also paid close attention to making sure that we put that fluctuation in our pricing, because at the time we were buying everything in retail. So we needed to put a fluctuation, because one week I might get the butter on sale at Myers, and then next week I got to pay the full price for it. So I didn't want to have that fluctuation in price, so we had to put that buffer in our price, in our profit margin from the beginning.
I agree with you, April. And we have attempted to practice a level of open book management and provided transparency. And the reality is it unless you tie that to an individual's benefit, then it's not likely to really provide much value. I recognized another mistake is I recognized that I was really doing it for me, to make me feel like I was being a good boss by being transparent, but that's not serving anyone on the other side, other than for them to look at it and be confused or not know what we're showing or talking about. So I think there's a level of education that has to come along with that too, if you're going to share information. But I tie this back to, and this is something that we've continued to work on at the studio, clarity in role. If you are clearer in what your expectations are out of a role and how you define it, and you can reinforce that with the people who are in your business, that's going to help. Like, I think, April, your story of like, is it my job to put a cake in a box, or is it my job to find the best way to deliver our product to our customer? And there's a very different definition, right? And which one are you supporting? Different business might have a different way of supporting it. But if we can get clearer in how we define our roles, then we have a better chance of individuals taking their ownership of their role, and then that laddering up to the original question of we're really behind the purpose and vision of the entity, because I know how my individual day-to-day efforts tie into it. And it starts at the role, or it starts with defining the purpose and vision, but it doesn't end there. You have to really carry that thread all the way through to the individual's day-to-day activities.
I know that we're getting close on time. I guess one final question, maybe Melissa, you can take this. We have a question from Olivia, and it's asked, how has networking impacted your career?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, I wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for networking, because and it's not the conscious networking that I've done on my part, where it's like, oh, I'm going to go to a networking event and meet a bunch of random people and pass out some business cards. It's been, I hate to say it, I've been collecting people throughout my career. So if I'm working with a graphic designer who's amazing, if I'm working with, for example, one of my partners has become an expat and he lives in China now, and I've known him for years. And so it's like, all of these contacts that you make throughout your career, keep them. If you see somebody who is doing an amazing job and is a really worthwhile person and is willing to work hard for you and that you can collaborate well with, keep them, always keep them in your circle. And that's how you grow your circle. And that's how you can grow all the rest of your business contacts. So, and go out, have a drink, go out, have dinner. that sort of thing. But I've never been the type of person that be like, yay, network event. Like I'm horrified by that. Like I'm an introvert extrovert, and that type of stuff scares me. So you can definitely create connections on the job and take those people with you throughout your career, and who knows how you can help each other.
Yeah, I'm the same way, Melissa. I'm not overly excited about a networking event, but the way you take networking out of it, right? Remove the connotations. It is a responsibility of someone who's a leader to find others who are doing interesting things and connect with them. And I mean, as people, we all want to be connected. So I try and just remove the word networking from it and look at it as, no, I'm going to seek out people who are doing interesting things and who are really good at what they do. And I want to learn more about them and then figure out how might I help them and how might they help me. And that's just how the world goes around. And specifically, I met the owner of Skidmore through a group of executives that I engaged in, and I never would have even known that business existed without it. And then Michigan Fields never would have launched without a network of at least a dozen partners who I built relationships with over years. Without that, it wouldn't have happened. So the whole career is built off of networking, even though I don't like networking.
Thank you all so much. I'm sorry to have to stop our conversation. We are at time. I'm sorry, April. We are just at time. Thank you all for joining us today for the first panel of our digital marketing workshop. Also, a big thank you to April Anderson, Drew Patrick, MJ Eldridge for taking the time to talk with us today. It was a great discussion. Join us tomorrow for our panel, The Future of Mobility. Thank you all.